Everyone, welcome to the first ever roundtable for the APE community. Today's discussion is going to be about nutrition and dieting as it pertains to aesthetics and weight loss. Right now, we're in the midst of a APE transformation challenge at 16 weeks, and we figured this would be a great topic to discuss between a lot of experts and people who are very experienced in this particular discussion point. So, without further ado, we're just going to introduce our panelists. First up, we have Terrible Hime.
Hi, I'm Chris, aka Terrible Hime. I have been into fitness and working out for over 10 years. I was at one point a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, although no longer. I typically am an IIFYM, if it fits your macros, kind of girly, and I have gone through several bulking and cutting cycles.
Nancy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy, aka Nancy Squats. I am 37 years old. I've always kind of been into fitness, but I took weightlifting pretty seriously when I was about 25, so about 12 years of heavy lifting. I also do a lot of if fits your macros type of dieting. I recently just did my first bodybuilding show last October, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, thank you. Jason, Diabolic.
Hi, I'm Jason, Diabolic, Dia. I originally started out as a gymnast from a young age, and then I sort of transitioned when I was 30 into lifting weights, and I've been lifting weights for about 11 years now. I've competed in men's physique shows. I was on the journey to transition to classic, and I'm just kind of sort of in limbo about what I want to do with bodybuilding wise. Sorry, I'm sick. But for me, food is just sort of I try to prioritize protein. I made a lot of mistakes early on, and it's just adapting and figuring out what works best for me now. So
Great. Sweet Lou.
Hello, my name is Sweet Lou, also known as Lou. I was a certified personal trainer going on 11 years ago now. First started lifting to improve my athletic ability because I had dreams of being 5'9" in the NBA, and white was not going to go well in the first place. Since then, I transitioned more into strength training, performance, started looking at physical rehabilitation, things like that, and then pivoted more into strength training, and now kind of quote-unquote the programming person for the Aesthetic Physique Enthusiast conglomerate. Most of my diet advice and training comes from if fixture net macros, kind of flexible dieting, more intuitive, depending on the use case, and I know we'll get into that later on. But yeah, that's kind of my background.
Great. Toon.
Hey everyone, my name is Toon. I'm 31 and started working out when I was 14 on and off. I was bulimic when I was younger, had very bad eating habits, and I beat that just through fitness and honestly a love of gaming over time. And I just combined those to try to gamify my mindset with regards to fitness and nutrition overall. I modeled full time for about 5 years. I've been on a reality show. I've had multiple sponsors, and I've been shredded numerous times for festivals, just partying in general, and just life. Z's was a big inspiration. I've never competed, but I consider my physique to be at least somewhat above average. And I've helped over 150 people at this point now with my own fitness coaching business lose fat and gain muscle and change their story overall. But hello, nice to meet you all, and let's have a good discussion.
Cool. And Tabs.
Hi, I'm Tabs, and I'm 32 right now, and I've been kind of in the community for about 4 years now. I did start working out like a little bit before this, but I would say it was mostly just like learning the movements and everything. And then I actually got more serious whenever I started hanging out with the Twitch Health and Fitness community. And my background, I was an ultimate frisbee club player. I also played on the like first women's pro team in Nashville several years ago, and I ended up tearing my ACL. And a lot of you guys are the ones that kind of really helped me kind of get through that recovery and that rehab, and to come back, stronger and to be able to get back into it. And so as far as nutrition goes, I've been learning a lot in the past several years as far as being able to kind of learn how to kind of trade out the things that you can do to make things more macro friendly, as you call it. And it's been a really cool transition. And I've been doing the APE transformation challenge for the past, this is the third year I think we've done it. And it's been a really cool effort to do with everyone. And I really enjoy it.
Thanks, Tabs. Lastly, I am Acro. I'm going to be hosting and kind of guiding the conversation we have here today. I kind of am the, I guess, the founding father of the Aesthetic Physique Enthusiasts community, but we have a lot of people in our community who are super experienced and knowledgeable, and I'm going to turn it over to them for most of this discussion because I want to hear what they have to say. And we're just going to guide it through, and without further ado, we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk specifically about just the overall philosophy. What is your philosophy with dieting? We're just going to go down the list. So Tabs, let us know like what your philosophy is just overall on your dieting approach. What has worked for you the best?
Actually, counting macros has been really helpful, and I try to log as much as humanly possible. Dia helped me my first year to try and really get it fine tuned, and so that helped me to kind of set up for in the future as to how much protein I need to be getting on a regular basis and how that adjusts over time as you lose weight or if you were to be gaining weight, so that you are making the correct adjustments that you're maintaining your muscle as much as possible or growing if that's in the process that you're working on.
Cool. And Toon, what do you think? Like, what have you experienced and what have you experimented with, and what is your overall kind of philosophy now?
I think that everyone has a type of diet style or way of eating that's going to work best for them. That's why some people are carnivore or enjoy eating vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian. But my own personal philosophy overall is that everyone at some point in their fitness journey should be tracking macros for an extended period of time so they gain the intuitive knowledge of how much generally protein they need during a day, and they can have a baseline visual cue that they can look at on their plate from tracking previously. If your goal is 200 grams because you're 210, 200 pounds, whatever, at least if you do this for a year, half a year at least, you'll be able to see, all right, over 4 meals in the day, I need this portion size of protein with these protein sources to at least hit XYZ. So then at least going in the future, if you do relax off of your fitness journey and you're not tracking as meticulously, when you have kids or a family, you can carry on that knowledge for them. So tracking is an important skill that I think everyone should aim to acquire at some point.
And as of right now, are you kind of just like tracking your own macros like completely, or are you kind of like more strict meal planning on your day-to-day stuff? What do you say you do?
So 4 meals that I eat every day are always consistent. I eat the same thing every day. Right before this call, I had the same first meal of the day that I always have, which is protein oatmeal. I don't track it in the app, but I still use a scale when I'm weighing out the food because I know which numbers I need to hit, how much oatmeal I need to pour, how many blueberries I put on there, how much peanut butter I put on there. And as long as I'm within like 5 grams of that number, I know I'm set. Same thing with my ground beef later in the day, my chicken thighs right now, my dinner, and if I have a snack, what I put in that shake. So I'm pretty consistent. And with the weigh-ins I have overall too, there's measurable information I have to then adjust if needed. I've been the same weight for over 3 years now. Like I have it down. I have the proof for that.
Cool. Lou, how about you? I know you're in the midst of your transformation as well. What have you been doing recently that's been working the best for you?
Yeah, for me, Toon actually kind of basically summed it all up for me. I am a creature of habit. I eat virtually the same thing every single day. And a lot of people would hear that and go, wow, that sounds really sad and depressing. It's not, because I make it taste delicious. In the morning, again, I'm Scottish, maybe you can tell. It's porridge in the morning every day for me. Porridge and protein shake. Usually my lunch is some form of lean meat. Turkey bacon has been my latest obsession. Maybe a bagel, some eggs, whatever, usual kind of thing. Getting good healthy fat sources as man is fairly important. And again, just kind of being consistent, doing the same thing, using a scale, because as much as we like to say, oh, that's about X amount of grams of peanut butter or whatever, you're lying to yourself, and you know you're lying to yourself, and and that's fine.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
you need to get that information, you need to get that baseline. So for me personally, I'm a creature of habit. I like to do a bit of kind of intuitive and flexible dieting, but I do track it to make sure that, you know, that heaped tablespoon is just one and not seven, as I put it into my porridge in the morning. But that's going to be my goal. You know, I hit about 300 pounds, somewhat by accident, not really by accident, last year, and it's just been kind of slowly getting it back down again. Just forming new habits, and that's my overall approach. Even when I was a trainer, is I don't like taking away. I like just slowly adding in new behaviors, new habits to kind of course correct back long term. But all those approaches, as kind of Toon said, is going to depend on who it is. You know, if Dia says, "Hey, I've got a show in 16 weeks," that slow, steady approach of diet habits is not going to matter. But if Tab says like, "Hey, I want to get back into ultimate frisbee shape," then that slow corrective is going to matter a bit more. So that's kind of my approach: creature of habit, slow corrective behavior, unless the need calls for something else.
I think that's massive too, because I think a lot of us have dealt with, you know, the whole course correction and like, you know, dealing with old habits and stuff. And I think that's going to come up a lot later in the discussion. But yeah, it's a really good point. Jason, what are you doing right now? I know you're pretty strict, so it's the same. It seems like a theme. It seems like the theme is macro tracking and kind of eating the same stuff.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I mean, I'm strict, and like I take the approach of like, this is what you have to do. Sucks to suck. Like this is what it is. But I do know I'm far less strict when it's not for an actual show prep. I mean, I'm still strict. I you know, mentally beat myself up if I look through my app and I haven't tracked anything that day. Not that I really have to track anything. I basically eat the same thing pretty much every day, but it's still with it's one of those weird things where it's like if I don't have the numbers and the data, like it's all lost to me. So it's like I do my best to at least get it in the app and see the data and see the results. Um, but usually, like right now, I'm on a cut for this transformation. I'm taking it fairly seriously in the sense that you know I want to get down to near show ready leanness, maybe like 6 to 8 weeks out. But it's you know it would be a little different if I was doing it for an actual prep. Um, and this time around, I took it fairly more aggressive in the beginning, and so now I don't have to go as aggressive. So I'm getting a little more food every day, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm taking it.
Okay. And Nancy, you also competed, and now you've kind of seen a different, you know, side of things. How are you approaching it? And yeah, this is my wife, guys, so I know her approach, but let's hear it.
Just just a little background. I've been dieting. I've been dieting on and off like pretty much my entire life. So I started dieting when I was like 12 years old. I've always tracked my calories since then, like on and off. I have struggled with being a little overweight. Like I can gain weight like pretty quickly. I have no self-control sometimes. I finally wanted to do my first bodybuilding show. I wanted to do it 2 years ago, but yeah, Acro suggested that I try to get close to show lean a couple years ago. So we kind of did a mock prep, and that went pretty well. I went from like 145 pounds to 119 pounds. It was a very slow cut. I went with the style of it fits your macros. That worked pretty well. And then a year later, we decided to do an actual show prep. Also did the it fits your macros approach up until maybe about 6 to 8 weeks out. We started doing meal planning towards the end. Just because as I was getting leaner, things were um
Touchy, right?
like
Yeah.
touchy, yeah. Sodium and stuff like that I wasn't tracking. We started tracking like all those things towards the end of the prep. But right now I'm in my improvement season. I don't know if I'm going to do another show or not. That's kind of up in the air, but I am eating very well. I'm tracking all my protein. I'm probably, I don't know. I haven't been tracking like meticulously. I'll be honest. I have a little bit of macro tracking fatigue right now, so I'm just taking a little break. But definitely getting my protein in. I'm making sure I'm probably getting about 130 to 150 grams of protein every day.
I think those are going to be really good for like when we talk a little bit later about macro tracking fatigue and mental fatigue and this stuff. I think it's very important. Chris, let's hear your philosophy and how you go through these.
Yeah, I mentioned that I'm an IIFYM girly, and when I'm in a fat loss phase, which I currently am in now, I'm very strict with tracking, but unlike a lot of people, I don't eat a lot of the same foods every day. When I first started, it was definitely easier to like meal prep when I wasn't experienced with making macro friendly foods, but nowadays I do have kind of like a daily strategy, but a lot of the foods I eat day to day is very different. So, like in the mornings, I have my coffee with protein and creatine. I do usually have a protein shake of some sort, like in the like early afternoon, and a lunch with some sort of lean protein, but my dinners, which is usually my biggest meal of the day, is typically different every day. And that's what works best for me because I get, I would say, probably like meal fatigue of
Mm.
trying to eat the same thing every day. And I'm somebody that loves food and I'm very gluttonous when I'm not in a strict fat loss phase. And yeah, this is not something that I do year round, but I do always try to prioritize my protein. Doesn't matter if I'm in a fat loss phase or an improvement phase or if I'm tracking or not tracking. And I try to get around 150 grams of protein a day as somebody that's typically around 150 pounds.
Cool. I think we're going to get into like some of the recommendations in like the next segment, but this is for the whole group. Like, you know, when we first started, we all kind of like probably had a bunch of different ideas, or maybe you were fed some lies or some bro science or something. Now that we kind of know what works for us individually and how long we've been doing it, like what kind of information and what kind of suggestions would you have for someone like me, for example, who just kind of didn't even know what a macro was? You know, I think Toon had some pretty good, insight, and I like to tell this to people is, you know, just track. Like, don't even worry about what it is, just track and figure out how to track, because that's going to be very valuable in the future. But I'll leave this open up to everybody, and we'll just kind of play it, and we'll go from there. Anyone can jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
I think going off of what you said, tracking just what you eat as is a very enlightening experience. I find that most people are under eating or grossly overeating what they think. Generally, someone's been trying to lose weight or go on a fat loss journey, but they just haven't been seeing success. They think they're in a deficit, but if they actually track correctly, they'll find that that's usually not the case. And I say correctly because it's possible to track and you do it incorrectly. You might be missing certain things like oils or certain sauces, or you're snacking and you think like, oh, these chips here won't matter, but in the end they do. So it's important to make sure that you're not just tracking macros, but you're trying to actually improve the skill of how accurate you're using that tracking mechanism, because it's just a tool. Tracking isn't 100% accurate in itself. The labels that you look at aren't 100% accurate in themselves either. So it's just another tool under your belt. And by tracking what you normally eat as is, you'll get a foundation of where to go next. If you're under eating, you know that you need to add more because you're having trouble gaining weight if you're quote unquote a hard gainer, and vice versa if you have trouble losing weight.
Yeah, I agree. I've experienced the same thing where most people are grossly like over and or under eating, and they have no idea. And when you try to get them to track, that does seem to be the biggest setback that most people have in the beginning. They're like, "Well, I don't have time to track." Like, you do. It takes 10 seconds. It's not that difficult. It's annoying, sure, but when somebody actually commits to tracking and just makes it a habit, they realize how wrong they were for so long. And when that just kind of becomes a normal thing that they do now, which they don't necessarily have to stick with it. I know, Ari, You don't necessarily track everything. Toon, you mentioned you don't necessarily put it in the app either. But over time, you know what portions look like, because even if you're tracking it, you know, you also have to look at serving sizes. If you're eating a bowl of cereal every day, you can be tracking that wrong. Like, well, I had 1 serving of cereal. It's like, did you weigh it? No. And so, you know, it could have been 2 servings of cereal. Most cereal is like 56 grams for a serving, which is nothing. So I think just committing to tracking and making sure you're doing it properly with a scale so that you actually see what serving sizes are is invaluable in the end.
I think you brought up a great point with the serving sizes, because there's a lot of snacks or just products out there that are sneaky. You'll look at the macros on the back and you think, oh, hey, wow, this is a great protein to calorie ratio. But then you realize, oh, no, you're actually eating like a mouse-sized little bite here. And if you want to actually fill yourself up, it's not going to be that better of an alternative compared to something else. So like Jason was saying, if you pay attention to these labels and you learn over time, you won't get caught up by these little marketing tricks that these companies do with their products. Sorry, Tabs, I know you were going to say something.
I think Chris was going to say something. What do you got, Chris?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think one of the main reasons that people are so resistant to tracking is because of the psychic damage that it does.
Sure.
Learning like how small 1 serving is or how small 1 serving is. Like, people think a tablespoon of peanut butter, which itself is like 100 something calories, they think it's like a scoop, but really it's like a flat tablespoon and it's really not that much. And just the weight of how many calories they've actually been eating makes them feel bad and makes them not want to track. And I also think a lot of people maybe think that they should be eating a certain amount of calories to lose weight, but that's not the reality. They probably have to eat far less than what they think, and that also does a lot of psychic damage and makes them resistant to tracking. I mean, in this fat loss phase, I've been struggling with that a little bit. Prior to this, I've never had to go below 1,500 calories to lose weight. And maybe the goal that I set for myself was a little ambitious, but I've been under 1,500 for like the past couple weeks, and it's been like a big kind of like a hit to my ego that I've had to be in that kind of a situation.
I think you bring up a really good point into our next kind of part of this is like how do you know how much you're supposed to be eating when you've been eating intuitively, sometimes wrong if you're chasing a goal. What do you guys suggest? I mean, I tell people typically to go to a TDEE calculator and kind of like just get an idea. We talked about this and Toon mentioned this, like it's not accurate, it's not always accurate, but it's about getting some sort of metrics that way you can track trends. Same thing with weight, tracking how much you weigh, and all that stuff, the factor of how much you're burning and all that stuff. What do you guys say to people, and what have you noticed yourself when you have to kind of figure out your macros and your TEE? Open to everybody, anybody.
I mean, currently I'm...
Go ahead, Tabs. I mean, Chris, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, currently I'm using Macro Factor to help estimate my macros, and it kind of updates weekly, and I can choose to use that strategy or not. But I think in general, like what you said about using a TDEE calculator is a really good idea just to get like a baseline, a goal for you to start tracking and then monitor your progress and adjust from there. Typically, I would tell people try something for 2 weeks and see how you respond, and then adjust accordingly after that. Every time you make a change, give yourself like at least a week or 2 to see if something happens at all. Don't immediately like say, oh, well, I ate too much one day, so I'm going to drastically reduce my calories, or, I had a big weigh in, and then change your entire strategy based on that.
It's funny. I think this is true in a lot of ways where it's like you start your fat loss journey and you see a big whoosh effect the first week or two. And then you're like, well, I'm losing way too fast. I need to increase my calories. And then all of a sudden you're stuck and you're like, oh, why is this happening? It's because, they lost all the water weight and stuff. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's like, don't make any modifications for, 2 weeks or so. Right. Anyone else? What do you guys say?
I was going to mention that the baseline for the TDEE, that is great. That's where I usually start. But sometimes people might be like a little ambitious, and then they'll like decide to cut like maybe 500 calories from that or whatever, and it might be like having them in like 1,300 calories to start, and then they have nowhere to go, and then they destroy all of their like hormones, and then maybe they're not eating enough fat in a day, and that destroys their hormones and their like brain activity, and that can really mess you up. So it's like just start slow and kind of like adjust when you really have to, rather than like adjusting like every week, because that's, again, you're going to run out of room real quick, and then you're not going to have anywhere to go from there. And then even increasing your protein as you go is like kind of how I've been working on it.
Yeah, and I would echo a lot of that. I mean, I mentioned at the start of the program that, I prefer that kind of slower approach because, I remember sitting in a cafe at the gym I was working at doing Harris Benedict BMR calculations, trying to figure out everybody's macros because TDE.net didn't exist yet. So it's very, very hard because you're not just dealing with this whole new goal you're trying to take on. You're also dealing with all the information you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So you're currently trying to battle between trying to figure out for yourself, trying to find the information that works for you and is also correct. And again, I'll put that in quotations because it all kind of depends to a certain extent. And you're kind of stuck in this almost paralysis by analysis because you don't know what way you're going and what you're not doing. Even to this day, I remember Cosmopolitan magazines would come in. In fact, I had a former client give me this perfect diet, and it was actually just a Cosmopolitan cutout. And I was like, well, this is why we're not seeing results here. It's hard to face the reality of the decisions, and all of the things we've spoken about already, where you have no idea what you're actually eating until you track it. And now I think it's getting even worse with how easy. I don't want to say poor information or bad information, but just how easy accessible information is, and not all of it's going to be relevant, not all of it's going to be beneficial, not all of it's going to be useful, and you're just getting lambasted with it because that's how algorithms work. You engage with it one time, and then boom, all of a sudden you're getting a lot of this information over and over again that just can completely warp everything you're doing. And as kind of Hime pointed out, it's like if you get some new information that this could completely change my diet, this is why I'm in a lock right now and I can't get any farther, I'm going to change my diet to keto. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, you've just done 2 weeks of efficient macros, but the course is going to change if you go to keto. Keto's not working now, you go to carnivore, and you're just kind of doing this jumping back and forth. It can be a very, very difficult thing to navigate. So I kind of echo Tu's point, just like information is power, but it can also be detrimental. So you have to be very, very careful about how you implement your strategies. Start slow, take it easy. There's another thing, sorry, just a random aside, when we're doing the TDE calculators, everybody thinks they're a pro athlete. Everybody thinks they work out 5 times a week. Everybody thinks they're doing 2 weeks and they're, hitting their hill sprints and they're, in the gym. You're not. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. I hate to deflate your ego right now. You're not a professional athlete. You sit at a desk and that's fine. You just have to make peace with that decision and kind of go from there.
And go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say definitely like one of the biggest problems with those TDEE calculators is people do not give a realistic estimate of their total activity throughout the day. And like me personally, I am somebody that works out lifting weights 5 times a week, but I would consider myself sedentary, like incredibly sedentary, even though I lift weights like with a decent amount of intensity 5 days a week. And that's, I think the activity level is the thing that really trips people up the most with those TDEE calculators.
I think a lot of people when they see the number, especially when they're honest with themselves, I think they're afraid that it's wrong because they feel hunger signaling. And I think we've been talking about this a little bit, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, but hunger isn't the enemy. You know what I mean? Yes, we want to stay satiated, right? And we're going to talk about that next, is how do you stay satiated? But to me, hunger really isn't the enemy. So the next question is, how do you guys kind of stay satiated in these dieting phases? What are your tricks? Or are you hungry all the time?
I've got Dai's voice in my head, so I'm going to jump in really, really quickly. This is something Dai said. It's just it's one of those things that unfortunately you have to make peace with yourself. Is like you're gonna be hungry, and that's okay. That's fine. You're being so used to, You know, God, can you remember what the first time you measured a bowl of cereal was? Like just looking at it and going, "Is that it? Are you serious?" You're completely changing your lifestyle. Granted, slowly over time, like you're gonna be hungry, and that's okay. Sure, there's other things you can do. Big tall glass of water before meals, big plus. Making sure you get enough proteins, most satiating macro, big plus. Making sure you're getting fibrous vegetables in there as well, big plus. Using micronutrient dense foods, fruit, things like that, big plus. All those things will help, but I think you kind of have to kind of make peace with the fact that you're gonna be hungry as you adjust to this, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it, when you're hungry, you know it's working. It's I mean, I'm a psychopath, so I actually like the hunger, and it becomes like a mental game for me. It's like how long. I mean, I've done crazy stuff to the, I've done every diet you can think of, to the even to the point where like things that no one should ever do, very unhealthy. But it's now I don't mind the hunger at all. I am a consistent forget to eat kind of person. So the biggest thing for me is eating when I'm not in a cut, because I have to constantly be eating to get in all the calories that I need to get in. So cuts for me are not that big of a deal. Um, and then usually I noticed that when I started drinking at least a gallon of water a day, that really helps satiation. On top of just prioritizing protein with every meal. The more protein you have, the more the less hungry you're going to be earlier on. If for breakfast you just had some cereal with milk, that's not really enough protein, and or you're snacking on things that aren't higher in protein, you're going to find yourself hungry within another 10 minutes. So it's especially when you're cutting, snacking is not like the greatest idea ever. So, but that's kind of where I stand with that.
When it comes down to hunger for me, honestly, I'm not saying always, but suck it up. Like, it's not a matter of doing your best, it's about doing what's necessary. If you have a goal weight or a target, there is a level that you have to hit for that. Whether that's calorically, getting a certain amount of movement in, it may suck. It usually does. And a lot of us mentally aren't used to that hunger in the beginning. I wasn't. I used to hate it. I was fat when I was younger, and I had to transition from eating. I needed to eat 6 to 8 cookies before I went to bed. Love sugar all the time. And the process from stopping over time was always a battle, and it was a struggle, but you just have to do what you need to do. With regards to photo shoots that I've done in the past, if you have 2 weeks or 3 weeks before a big shoot, I can't be like, oh, I'll press you like, oh man, I'm too hungry, I can't do this. You have to stay in that deficit. You have to get in those half an hours, maybe 60 minutes on a treadmill, on a stair climber to burn a certain amount of calories to make sure that you're dropping at the rate you need to. Now, do you need to go this hard with it? No. But do you want to hit your goal? At a certain point, you got to be okay with being uncomfortable, like everyone here is saying. So if someone has time, you can be a lot more easygoing with it, like we were saying here before. But if you want to be a bit quicker with things, I'm saying, hey man, you can be aggressive. You don't need to, go super, super light with it if you feel a little bit of hunger. There's tools, intermittent fasting, coffee for appetite suppressant, estrogen and caffeine. That's what I did when I was younger. Would I recommend that to everybody? No, because it can be a bit harsh with regards to the stimulants. It's a lot of caffeine. But I did what I needed to do to get shredded and to get lean. And I looked sick. I've had clients look sick because of that. But it comes down to the individual and how uncomfortable you're okay with being. Not everyone can do it. But if you are, it's a mindset. And it's a matter of whether or not you want to step into that level of being uncomfortable.
Do you guys think there's ever a reason to adjust your macros because you're so hungry? If your weight loss is on track?
No.
That's sabotage.
I mean, if you're on track, why are you going to change anything? If everything you're doing is currently working but you're still hungry, why? Yeah, it's sabotage. Why would you change? Don't fix what's not broken.
So to expand on that, beyond the goals of body, right? Let's talk a little bit about the mental stuff. What if it's affecting your mood at home? Things aren't working out. Maybe you need to slow down the aggressiveness. Would that be acceptable?
I think
could
if
play-
you're gonna bring up other context to it, I think there's always rationale to look at the bigger picture, right? If your sex life is being affected, if you work a manual labor job and you're not able to get through that day physically because you're just too fucking hungry, okay. But if that's going to affect your rate of fat loss, then I would ask, okay, is this just your psyche, that's your inner voice getting into your head, or do you genuinely need to adjust these macros here because you just can't go on? Or are you just not used to feeling hungry and you don't like that feeling? And that takes an honest, reflection on that person.
I think
yeah,
in a
and
lot
I
of
think it
cases-
matters. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I think in a lot of cases, there are things that can be changed with what you're doing with the macros that you have that a lot of people aren't doing. And maybe there's a case for like, oh, I don't have time or I don't know how. But I'm not somebody that likes to be physically uncomfortable. Like I don't like working out. I don't like being sore. I don't like being hungry. I don't like any of those things, and I don't think that I necessarily have to feel any of those things to reach my physique goals. But well, I mean, obviously I do have to work out, but I don't have to like kill myself. But I mean, like all those things that Lou mentioned earlier, like drinking water. I'm not a huge person, but I drink well over a gallon of straight water a day in addition to like coffee, tea, diet soda. I do everything with like the vegetables. I eat so many vegetables and I eat smaller portions of carbs so that I feel more full. I eat a lot of soup when I'm in a calorie deficit because it's more filling because of all the liquids. So there's a lot of adjustments people can make with the macros they have so that they don't feel that physical hunger sensation. And there's just like a lot of people just like aren't doing those things. They go for like the easier options that are um not as satiating, and they aren't willing to like do the stuff that they need to do to fit something more volume into their diet. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely cases where you might want to change your macros,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, maybe you need to like think about other strategies before you jump to that conclusion.
I think Nancy.
That's what I was gonna
Oh, go
say.
ahead, Tabs. Yep, sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Tabs.
I was gonna say for me, like I may not necessarily have 3 huge meals in a day and would change it up to having like 5 smaller meals so that I can kind of have a little bit more to eat throughout the day and last me longer, I think. And along with the water, I make sure that I at least have a gallon a day, and then I do have a lot of diet soda, but I feel like that makes it work for me. And so that way I don't have to, like struggle with not having anything. And so it's just like, okay, well, that I can do, that I can implement. That's kind of how I would change things.
What I was going to say is I know Nancy had a lot of experience with this when she was going through her dieting for the show, in that, increasing volume was a big thing. But the other thing that she did was she actually added more sodium to her diet as well, which helped in a lot of ways, which we're going to talk about performance in a little bit. So Nancy, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit when it comes to this stuff and psychologically, like how much it might have helped or maybe you struggled.
Yeah, so for my bodybuilding prep last year, yeah, I went down pretty low in calories and macros, like probably the last like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe like 3 weeks. 3 weeks, it was like a big struggle. But just like Chris and Tabs, like I just had to figure out ways to volumize my food to make sure I wasn't feeling as hungry as often. There was times where I'd wake up and I wouldn't eat my first meal till later in the day. Sometimes I would do the intermittent fasting route. It wasn't always like that, but I would do that. Every meal had vegetables in it. I was probably eating for most of my prep, I was eating about 50 to 60 grams of fiber every day. I was drinking a gallon and a half of water every day. Yeah, I try to do like everything to not feel hungry because it will, yeah, when I'm hungry, it like fucks up my mood. And, when I'm already like, I have all these other things going on in my life, like that's the last thing I want is to, you know, feel hungry and affect everything else. So, yeah, one thing I was doing, and it sounds kind of like probably gross, was I was putting like 2 or 3 servings of cauliflower rice and blending it in water. And I would put that in everything, my oatmeal, just to give it volume. So like, yeah, I, and also since I had like a deadline for this bodybuilding show, it was like I was hungry, but I was like, I need to do this. Like I committed to this. Um, if it was like a whatever, just a lifestyle thing, I don't know if I would have stuck it out as far as I did.
Great.
So,
Actually, yeah,
yeah.
So that brings us to the next point is how serious is this? And like, what do you tell people and what is the checklist you kind of give people or you maybe even give yourself about, I need to get through this. I need to hit this goal. What other things are you kind of putting off or what are you changing about your lifestyle that maybe you wouldn't normally change? Like for us, for example, like if we want to lose, weight in a 16-week transformation like this, like we're not going to be buying garbage and putting it in our cabinets. Like that's not acceptable, right? We're not going to be putting ourselves in situations like today's a Super Bowl. We don't watch Super Bowl, but we're not going to be putting ourselves in situations where we're going to want to snack all day and go over our calories a ton. Even though there are tricks, to get around that, maybe eat a little bit less if you have the willpower. But if you don't have the willpower, how do you do that, right? What is the checklist you have to kind of get through these times? What do you guys got?
I don't really have a checklist, but piggybacking on the bodybuilding versus lifestyle thing, it's very different, right? When it comes from a bodybuilding standpoint, there's just no excuses. Like when you're in prep, you're in prep. Do you want to win the show? Because if you want to win the show, you don't make any fucking excuses. You just do what has to be done to get you to the show at the best possible look that you can get. From a lifestyle perspective, there's way more leeway. 1 or 2 days of overeating isn't a huge deal. It's like you can just the next day you can just get back on track, whatever. So it's like today is the Super Bowl. A lot of people are going to be drinking or snacking or doing whatever. It's like who cares? It's one day. One day isn't going to set you back 2 weeks. It's like one day won't even set you back a week. It's like you can just tomorrow's Monday. Just get back on track again Monday. Who cares? But I mean, for me, if I just don't want to put myself in situations if I'm trying to reach a goal, I just won't put myself in any of those situations. It's just like I'd rather not. It's a lot easier for me to just stay home and do things at home than it is going out and hanging out with friends. And if I do have to go out and be social, then I'm gonna get. I just have to deal with the chatter. It's like, why aren't you eating this? Why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you doing this? It's like, because I have different goals than you, man. It's like it's not a big deal. It's and if they're not gonna like drop it and be like, oh come on, man, it's like you can just have one drink. It's like then I don't know, like maybe reprioritize your social group.
So how about for like people who are non-competitors and not doing something for a photo shoot, but just to get lean because you're an aesthetic physique enthusiast, right? What would you say would be like the number one thing to do besides the tracking and besides, the stuff we talked about? Like, is there any little thing that you guys kind of like emphasize when it comes to like your body type and what you appreciate in aesthetics for you to get there and maintain it? We've been doing this for over a decade. So what has been the thing that just keeps you there? Is it just the mentality that you love having abs and that's like the thing? What is it?
I mean, straight
For
up,
me, sorry, we all want to talk. Go ahead.
the way you live your life is going to heavily reflect on the way you perform and the way you look. So all of us right now on this call, on video, we look the way we do because of our current life habits. So if you have a goal and you imagine yourself at that end state, if that's a year from now, are you currently living the way that person would? If you can honestly say yes, I mean, you're on the right track. But throughout your day to day, like how active are you really? Are you going out for walks? Do you have any dogs that you have to take out for walks? Do you have a physically active job? Do you have any physical hobbies? All of these things are going to affect, your overall lifestyle with regards to your physique. And I think for some people, it just might be easier because they're just more active. If you're outside naturally, you're going to be, you're going to have a higher higher NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, than a streamer who does 16-hour marathons, 5 times a week. It's going to be a lot harder for them to get some normal activity in. But I'm like, hey, man, you could get a standing desk and a walking treadmill and, get some more NEAT in at home if you invest in that. So I think there's ways for anyone to kind of just be lean all year round, or to be aesthetic. Maybe you don't want to be lean. Maybe you want to just be strong, but like have a nice layer of fat on you. You can have that. You just got to find out what, not daily, but consistent habits you can uphold to help you get there. And that may be different for everybody.
Tabs, you had something to say?
Yeah, so including what he was saying about the lifestyle things, like some people want longevity, some people value those types of things, and if it's important to you, then you will make it a priority, right? And there's little things that you can do, kind of like what Daya was saying, where, like he generally tries not to like have to go out to eat with people because it's just not necessarily like easier for him to make that work. But like in instances, I was talking in some podcast earlier, and what they did is they were like, well, like all of their coworkers were trying to get everybody to go out to lunch, and it's like, honestly, I mean, it may be like faux pas, but I would bring my lunch with me, and I would just sit there and eat it with everybody at the at lunch out at a restaurant. Like I don't care as long as nobody yells at me about it, but I'm not like, like flashing around for everybody to see either. So I think there's like steps you can take to kind of make it easier for yourself, but that's also dependent on how important it is and like if you, want to do that. Plus you generally save a lot of money that way.
If I could add something to that,
Yeah.
As someone who has led an unhealthy lifestyle but stayed reasonably aesthetic during it, like substances when you're raving, binge drinking alcohol, frat parties, going out, clubbing, it takes a sacrifice in certain areas to try to maintain, but there's only so much you can do. Like if I drank a certain amount or if I was going too hard, there's only so much that anyone can honestly do to try to, hold off gaining body fat. If you're binge drinking, 10 plus drinks a night, 3 nights in a row, you're going to be kind of screwed either way. You're going to be you're going to be gaining some fat. But even if I was going hard like that, I would try to, and like Jason was saying, people will comment, same thing with Tabs, on like, yo, why are you bringing a Tupperware of chicken breasts and potatoes? I'm like, I'm doing this so I don't gain 6 pounds like you jokers, bro. Like I want to stay looking good. But you have to be able to have that mindset where it's fuck everyone else, man. I know what macros I gotta hit. I know what I need for my protein. And if I'm eating 2 large pizzas and a Big Mac combo like you guys, while we're drinking profusely over the next half a week, like it's gonna do some damage. But if you can, meal prep a bit beforehand, you bring the stuff up to the cottage or to the Airbnb or wherever you're going. Even if you're on a resort, staying away from the buffet and just getting protein sources and not letting people get in your head, you're going to be so much better off for it. Still hitting your workout in the morning, even if you're hungover, even if you feel like shit, just to keep up that consistency. That's going to help you honestly stay strong. It's going to help you perform better. It's going to help you recover better. And everything affects everything: the way you sleep, the way you eat, the amount of rest you get, even if you're on a couch or if you get a massage. This will help you recover from a hard workout. Alcohol affects your recovery too, so you want to keep that in mind. If you drink let's say you drink from like 4 p.m. to 2 in the morning, but then you only sleep 3 hours, good luck, buddy. But if you get, 6 to 8 hours, you're going to have a much higher chance of being able to bounce back that next day a bit better.
I think it's about finding balance, not just day to day, but in your life in general, like thinking about balance on the longer term, in terms of like months and years. I mentioned earlier that I don't track my macros year round. I'm very strict when I'm in a fat loss phase, but when I'm in a maintenance phase, I'm not tracking super strictly. And when I go on vacation, like I go absolutely balls to the wall on food. Like 2 to 3 weeks a year, I'm just nonstop eating ramen and sushi. So, that's kind of like my balance. It's kind of like an all or nothing, but it's what works for me. And there's definitely times of the year when I am at a higher body fat, and it's maybe not my favorite time of the year, but it's really difficult to maintain, especially for women, like a very low body fat percentage like year round. And sometimes it's good to just like let yourself go a little bit mentally and physically.
I think we can all agree we're kind of in that same boat where it's like we want to maintain a level of balance, but also have our fun, right? And I think a lot of us have our fun, and we know that like the physique in general, it's going to be there. You can always attain it, but you might want to have fun for a couple weeks or have your vacations and stuff. And I think that's well and good. Before we move on to the next segment, I just want to go through kind of like what we've discussed a bit. So most of us have a very balanced approach when it comes to tracking macros and meal planning and stuff like that. I think none of us are really a fan of like the fad diets. None of us are like to one way or the other. We understand macros are key, balanced diet, of course, but making sure you're sticking with it. So I don't think anyone will disagree with that, right? No. Okay. So most of us track with some intuition, some intuitive eating, unless we're doing something for a photo shoot or a show. Okay. So most people out there who are listening to this, if you're not doing a bodybuilding show or you're not doing a photo shoot, typically speaking, track the best you can, but, let your intuition guide you once you get the tracking down. That's kind of what I'm hearing, right? Intuition, because you learned how to track, right? Most of us don't really do the strict approach, as I was saying, unless we were in like something for a specific goal. The goal is key. Seems like I'm hearing, hey, everyone's saying, hey, the goal is the vision, stick to the goal. If you have a goal in mind for a certain amount of time, stick to it. That's how you're going to stay on track. We haven't gotten to this yet, but we're going to get into it, is making adjustments. But before I get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about, so we talked about volume. Make sure you have enough volume. Hunger isn't the enemy. If you're hungry, hey, just stick with it because, your goal, again, is what you're focusing on. And then the social situation stuff. Don't put yourself in those situations or track that stuff because it's going to be important, and no cheat meal goes unpunished, right? So I just want to talk about that real quick, is cheat meals. Do we agree that cheat meals, not just like periods of time where we're not focusing, but when we're in a focus period, like a 16-week challenge, do we allow cheat meals in the traditional sense where we're just eating whatever, not tracking it and saying, hey, it's a refeed, or are we doing a refeed in a traditional sense? And what are your takes on that, and how do you approach it? Anyone?
I can go first with that one.
Go for it.
So there's a few reasons why, if I had a client or even for myself, why I'd put a refeed in. First one might be just straight diet fatigue. If you've been in, let's give a case example. I'll just use myself. Let's say, 300 pounds and you want to get down to 250 in 16 weeks, which is totally possible. A bit extreme, but totally possible. You're in a steep deficit with 1,000+ calories for 6 weeks. Your mental is going to be so fucked. You need something. And if a bit of cheesecake and a bit of a whatever your meal and your favorite thing is that you're looking forward to in week 6 at the end of that week is going to get you there, I'm cool with that. Because as Dad pointed out, like that one day is not going to fucking ruin anything. You're going to be able to get back on track the next day. Especially when you have a lot of adipose tissue. If you're an extra fatty like me, then like it's fine. Like it didn't take you 16 weeks to reach 300 pounds. So it's not like that one day is not going to have that big of an impact. The other side of things would be a sort of performance-based metric. Not necessarily, actually, no, to a degree with the bodybuilding prep, that would be a factor of like, right, okay, there's a symptom of something going on here. Like if I see somebody's lifts routinely decreasing, then right, okay, something's going on there. We might have to look at macros, we might look at meal timing, we might have to look at something else before we shift and just give an influx of calories. If I had a more of a athletic performance endeavor, perhaps going pro frisbee, heaven forbid the Scottish national rugby team want me to coach them, then that would be a different point. Whereas like if we're trying to get your body fat down to a more performance level, but it's like I'm not feeling explosive, I'm not moving as fast, then at that point it's like, right, okay, we need to look at the food and see if you're getting the mandatory minimum effective dose for performance based metrics before we look at kind of completely going off the rails. So those would be kind of two ways that I would look at a refeed. Would be mental, just if like I need something and that one day of damage is what we're going to handle, fair enough. Then from a performance standpoint, if there's a extreme detriment or a signal coming up where we need to correct things, then that's when I would look at it.
Would you say, provided you're on track, you would do that? Like if someone
Yeah.
isn't on track, yeah.
Yeah, if someone's just fucking lying to you, like, yeah, I swear, bro, I've been doing my protein and my carbs, they've all been right, and you're just like, no, you haven't, you're just lying to me. Then fair enough. Or like, no, like, I know we talk about kind of the social element of it. Let's say, you know, like, oh, it's my friend's birthday, we're going out, it's karaoke night, Nickelback are in town, whatever it is. Then that's gonna have an impact. So you're gonna then have to go right that next week. Whatever signals appear, whether it's like your energy levels are down, like the reason is the weekend, so we're not going to make any changes there. So as long as you're on track and everything's going right, and you're being honest with yourself, and you're being honest with your trainer, and you're being honest with the person in the mirror, which, let's face it, we're not always honest with the person in the mirror, then everything's on right.
Yeah, I only utilize cheat meals after like a pretty long time within a deficit phase. And like from a bodybuilding standpoint, it's usually at some point deep in prep, just because, you know, you're using it for one, just to help the mental of it, but then two, like just because you're taking in all this extra calories for that day, your workouts for the next week are going to be pretty good, because I mean, deep in prep, it's just down every workout, it's just downhill every time. And so you have the mental aspect from that, on top of the mental aspect from not being able to eat a lot of food, and then you have that one cheat meal, you know, like 8-10 weeks in, and you know your workouts improve all that next week, you feel better, and then you can push through the rest of the prep. But I don't lifestyle factor, I don't really know how much that really matters. It's, I mean, I guess you could do it, but do you really need, from a lifestyle standpoint, like you shouldn't really have to be getting anything that deep into a prep to need something. But sometimes there is that mental thing, and they just need something. Like when I was helping Tabs, you know, like she'd never done anything like that before, and I was like, all right, just go eat something, and then, you know, don't worry about it. You'll get back on track the next week or whatever. And it was vastly helpful for her. So.
Do we all agree that the word cheat meal does it trigger anyone?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think we should probably like define it, where like for me, a cheat meal or a cheat day is eating anything and everything you want untracked,
yeah,
regardless of macros, anything like that. But a refeed is typically a day where you go from like a calorie deficit to being at maintenance calories. So like 300 to 500 above what you were in a deficit. So like for me,
Also,
like doing a cheat meal when I'm in a fat loss phase is just like a no-go. I can easily like completely negate my deficit for like an entire week with like one meal or one day, and it just like gets me out of the mindset. But I might take a refeed if I mentally and physically really needed one.
good Tabs.
and for me, it bugs me more when people say cheat day versus cheat meal, because it's just like, you don't need that much. Like, I mean, I get it, like, you know, some people might be, like, mentally and physically fatigued and need just a little bit of an energy boost, and, you know, like, maybe even, like, a little bit of a maintenance boost in their brain. But it's just like, whenever I hear people say it, generally means to me that they don't know what they're doing, and that they, aren't doing it intentionally. It's just kind of, like, willy-nilly, I guess. And I feel like maybe a cheat meal is a little bit more intentional, like, "Hey, I've decided that I'm going to eat these things, and I'm gonna be okay with it, and then move on with my life afterwards." And it's a little bit less detrimental to whatever your goals are, in usually, in my opinion. But, I mean, no, like Terrible Human just said, she was like, "I can completely negate it in, like, you know, one meal for a whole week." So I get it, I get it.
See, I'm in this kind of the same boat as you guys. Not so much Lou, because I feel like like if you're going to do like a cheat meal or a cheat day, I think everything should be tracked, especially if you're in like a fat loss phase. If you're in maintenance, typically, like if you're going to be eating something like it's like off macros or off track, it's like you're still going to be kind of understanding what that is, and your relationship with food kind of stays the same. I think that, like, for me, if I saw someone say I'm having a cheat day, it's just kind of it's reinforcing that whole negative energy with food, in my opinion, where it's like, oh, I'm going through this thing, it's really hard, it's really tough, I need to have my 2 pizzas, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, why couldn't you just have like a slice of pizza, you know, once or twice a week, whatever? Like, it's not a big deal. You know, that's just kind of my theory. Anyone else like want to back me up on that?
Yeah, cheat day is wild to me. Like, whoa, I don't know about a day. Like for me, if I'm gonna have a cheat meal or like a refeed, I just go get sushi. I can't really track. I mean, I guess I could track it, but it's the tracking apps aren't, it's like, it's very difficult to track sushi just because the macros are never gonna be what it is.
Yeah, it's hard.
So but like I will crush like a whole boat of sushi. I can easily eat like 2,000 calories with sushi in a sitting, but it's like if I'm gonna have a cheat, if I'm gonna like quote unquote cheat, it's just gonna be like that one meal. I don't need a whole day to fuck off. It's no, and usually I know if I'm gonna have sushi that night, I'll get my protein in the morning, some protein in the afternoon, and I'll sort of go a little lower on it just so I'm not going completely over beyond maintenance calories. I mean, my maintenance calories are pretty high. So, you know, if by the time I get to dinner, I've had 1,000 calories so far that day, you know, 1,700 calories of sushi isn't going to throw me out of maintenance. So,
anyone else
I
have
think as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Lou.
Sorry, there's a few things to kind of check our privilege, I guess, where we're talking about resilience and diet, where, you know, Di has been doing this for 10 plus years. We've all been doing it for longer. So if I went to 24-year-old Acro and went, oh, by the way, we're going to just cut off 1,000 calories from you, you'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think for new people, it can be somewhat like a lot more taxing because they don't have that level of resilience that's been built up in tolerance over years, which is just something you kind of have to kind of check. Whereas, like, look, it's fine for us to kind of all sit here and say, like, oh, you don't need a cheat day, you don't need a cheat meal. And I would agree, you don't need a cheat day. Although, you know, one of my cheat meals is a Papa John's and I can knock that thing out, no problem. That's 4,000 calories, done. But, like, it's fine enough for us to say that because we have the resilience to it. I don't agree anyone needs a cheat day, but the sort of the frequencies of a refeed would be very, very different on a case by case basis. You know, as someone in prep, you don't need one. You're not getting one because as Di says, we need to get you to that stage, and we need to make sure you're going to look a certain way. But if it's a lifestyle thing, it's like, hey, I'm going out on Friday night. It's like, right, we'll just, you know, get the lean cut of chicken with whatever potatoes are going on there. Don't drink too much and just go from there. Like, there has to be a sort of a give and take, a balance of it, as we're all saying, is trying to find that balance where if you just went all the way in, then you're going to crash. And it's the analogy I give, and it's the reason why it's my philosophy both in training and nutrition, where it's like, if you're going down the freeway and you want to make a 180 turn, if I crank the wheel, you're just going to burn it and crash. But if we slowly correct it by just making slightly different changes in behaviors, you're pointing in the right direction already, and you've not completely fried yourself doing so. So those are the kind of reasons I just want to kind of caveat with what we're talking about today, because I know if Coverings was in here, he'd be going on about talking about high maintenance calories, fucking 600 a week, you little shit. But yeah, just to kind of check those things.
Yeah. And I think the context I want to just reiterate is that it's in like the 16-week period. Like, that's the only reason I wouldn't do like a full day. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Lou. I think like if you wanted to do that and it's a lifestyle thing, for sure. In a 16-week period, though, if we're like on a goal pace thing, I'd probably be like, hey, slices of pizza every now and then aren't a big deal, but if you want to like eat 4,000 calories in a sitting in a 16-week period, you know, you might be backtracking a little bit more than you want. But that's,
our Transformers, 16 weeks. There's you get one cheat meal in week 12. There you go.
Yeah, that's good.
One cheat meal in week 12. That's it.
Yeah, and I would just go ahead.
I don't want to demonize going out either. Like I mean, even when I was in prep, like there were times where I had to go out because, you know, the in-laws or something were in town, and it's just like it's a lot easier for me to just adjust the food that I'm gonna get at the restaurant, especially when you go, like, you know, go to Bonefish Grill or something, and it's It's like, just get the salmon or the mahi-mahi. It's like, that's going to be pretty low cal, high protein. Like you don't, don't get the burger. Obviously, you just need to, during these cuts, if you do have to go out and be social at a restaurant, just make mindful choices of what you're getting. It's like, yeah, sure, getting the chicken is going to be like a boring restaurant option, or getting the salmon or the fish, but it's not going to be detrimental like to you mentally, because at least you get to enjoy the food that you're there. It's going to be slightly higher calories than if you were to make the fish at home or whatever, but it's not, getting the burger, it's not going to be, if you get the mindful choice, it's going to be a lot less calories than if you got the burger. So
I think
I would like to
planning
mention
ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry. No,
sorry.
Nancy. One thing that I would like to hear like some thoughts from the ladies on is like obviously we have to deal with a little bit more hormonal imbalances than men do. It's great, it's wonderful. And I do feel like I have a lot more of like I really need something right now. I need to eat something. And maybe it's like maybe more of like a maintenance because our bodies are typically usually burning more calories than they would be during that time of the year, month, whatever. And it's just like uh it can be very frustrating mentally and very draining. Do y'all have any like things that y'all do whenever you have to deal with that?
I'm gonna be honest, my hormones are like very steady. I'm on like a pill where I only get my period every 3 months, and usually I don't even get it on that third month. But I think I would tell people that do struggle with that first of all, you have to be like kind to yourself during that time of the month, and you might have to strategize to account for it. So if overall, you might have to think of your cycles on like a monthly basis in terms of like calories rather than like a weekly basis or a daily basis. So, you know, during I don't know the specific phases of the menstrual cycle. I just don't yeah, I can't remember. But like there might be like 1 week of the month where you are slightly lower calories and another week of the month where you're slightly higher calories and you know, just have to kind of account for that or you might have to yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, and for some women, they have to factor that into their lifting as well, where there's some parts of the month where they feel like really, really strong and they feel really good at the gym, and then there's other parts of the month where they can like barely get out of bed and get to the gym at all. So it's kind of like you have to know yourself and how your body responds to these hormones and adjust. It's not going to be like a one size fits all, especially like in terms of like fitness, where a lot of the information out there has come from research and studies on male bodies, not female bodies. We have to think about it differently sometimes.
You have anything to add, Nancy? You muted yourself again.
Oh, so yeah, like obviously there's like cravings involved and like increase water retention during certain times of the month for women. And one thing I would say is after a while you'll probably know yourself, but like if you are a person that like weighs themselves like every day or weekly and you notice that your weight is going up when you're trying to lose weight, I wouldn't like be too alarmed. It's just like a normal phase that usually the water will drop off in like a week or two. um yeah, with the cravings and stuff, like yeah, there's going to be times where you're going to crave peanut butter and chocolate or something right before you have your period. You could have those things if you are tracking your macros. If you're wanting to, or you not accidentally, but you do go overboard on your macros one day, you just need to adjust later in the week. But me personally, my cycles aren't regular. I probably have a period once every 2 months. When I was in my bodybuilding prep, I lost my period for a long time. Was not the healthiest thing, but that's just kind of how it goes. So, yeah, even the lifting throughout the month changes. Like I'm really strong, like when I'm ovulating, like, a couple weeks before my period comes. And then like the week before my period and the week of my period, my lifts are gonna suck. And then you just understand it's not gonna be like that forever. And it's just gonna restart again. And it's just how it goes, being a female.
I would also recommend that when you're actually in your period and you're bleeding, try to eat more red meat. Try to get more iron in your diet, if you are somebody that eats meat. But dark leafy greens also have iron. Maybe you need to supplement during that time. But yeah, I think it actually is helpful to eat more red meat when you're on your period.
Great. So the last bit we're going to talk about are actually recommendations. Recommendations and how you're going to move forward. Now we kind of gotten the meat potatoes on this stuff. We're going to go kind of back to the beginning and talk about people's recommendations for what we talked about. So we're going to talk about protein recommendations, first of all, and then we're going to kind of go into gym performance and how do you change and modify your macros over a weight loss period. So first of all, I typically have said to people 1 gram per centimeter in height. What do you guys recommend for protein intake?
Yeah, I agree with that. That pretty much works across the board for everybody because I know like everyone's 1 gram per pound of body weight, but that only works for if you're an obese person, that's not going to be accurate. But across the board, 1 gram per height of centimeters. That's going to be that's going to work for women. For men, it might be a little high for women, but I still think it works.
Everyone kind of agree with that? All right, I guess it's blanketed. 1 gram per centimeter height. I usually say 1.1 to 1.3 if you're a little more muscled, just to get up to like 200, 220 grams for me if I'm like 180 centimeters, right? And then how about the other macros? How do you fill those in? So I typically tell people anywhere between 20 and 30% of your total calories should come from fat and the rest can fill in with carbs, but I guess it's individual. What do you guys think?
It's going to be a case by case basis. I mean, this is one of those things. God, I hate that this is the answer, but I also love this is the answer. It depends is the leading answer for any fitness related question. I know we'll get into gym performance and that maybe later on, but if you are a performance based individual, let's say for example you are in a fat loss phase, but you are a semi professional player, so you need to kind of pay attention to your carbohydrate intake to make sure it's going to be elevated enough to fuel performance. I generally do agree that the 1 gram per centimeter is pretty good kind of ballpark figure for almost everybody. You'll need a little bit of tooling depending. Body fat will dictate. There's a lot of new shit that's coming out regarding lean body mass and correct 1.3 to 2.0 per whatever, and it can. There's a long debate in the Discord about this, and whatever. There's a lot of kind of going on about what protein intake you need, but I think ultimately for the rest of the macros, if you're doing the 1 gram per centimeter as a kind of baseline, maybe plus minus 20%, 20 grams depending. The rest of it just kind of falls how it needs to fall. I think the 30% rule for fat is a pretty good target, but ultimately, unless your performance is one thing you're really mindful of, it doesn't really matter. Just as long as you're kind of staying under your total, and I would just go intuitively on how you feel. Like if you're eating 30% and you feel really good in terms of like fat intake, cool, no need to change it. If you're eating 25%, you also feel cool, don't need to change it. So it just kind of depends how you feel in your performance, but ultimately those two macros when it comes to fat loss phase is not going to matter. As long as you're total under it, and just if you're performing well and you feel good.
I kind of want to hear what Toon has to say because I know he trains people. What's kind of your approach?
Sorry, as you asked that the question originally, I was typing up in the chat there. So this is about macro distribution for someone in a fat loss phase?
Yeah, it's like in general, like what's your recommendation for basically how do you break down someone's macros?
So at a bare minimum, 25%, 20% of that should be fats just for overall health. Carbs, I don't do keto. So some people will be like, oh man, just zero carb me, bro. And I'm like, no. Protein's going to be at least 1 gram per pound. I know 0.8 literature wise is okay, but I think recently we've seen that a bit higher is better as a natural athlete. And generally, someone might be under tracking with regards to protein. So I'd rather keep it a bit safe, go a little bit above that just to make sure you're getting in what you need. Because as you're in a deficit, we want to be maintaining as much muscle as possible, or even gaining some, depending on if you have noob gains or if you're right in the beginning. So baseline, I always look at what protein they need first. So at least 1 gram per pound. Give them about 20% minimum of fats, and then the rest is carbs. Some people respond better to a bit higher fat in their diet, which we'll find just from the week to week. Like when they're tracking, I'll look over how they're responding, how they're performing, how lethargic they feel, their digestion, their stools. And then we can try some things out, right? We might go a bit lower with regards to simple carbs and give them a bit more fat. I've got a few clients who do just generally enjoy that more because diet-wise, they might just enjoy fatty foods, bacon, certain red meat cuts, avocados, and dropping that low just on an enjoyment level, they don't like. And I think a lot of us, I think everyone would agree to this. A big part of adherence is to have as much enjoyment out of the diet as you can. So if we can still hit a caloric target and hit their protein and have them in a healthy ratio of like carbs and fats, even if that's a bit lower carb and higher fat, cool. If they're still in the deficit, cool. We're seeing progress, cool. Let's just keep it at that. Why change something that's working? And we'll just go from there.
I think speaking of stools, we got to talk about it. Fiber intake. What do we recommend? What have you guys been eating? Do you track it? Do we track fiber here?
I take psyllium husk and a probiotic, and I'm set. I got BBC sliding on my butt all the time. I'm good.
I just do carb balance fiber wraps. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are really good.
I try to get like 20 to 30 grams a day, and it's all from fiber wraps. I can't be bothered by constantly buying vegetables and eating. The amount of vegetables I would have to eat to get enough fiber is absurd. So it's usually the only vegetables I'm eating is during dinner, but 90% of my fiber is all coming from carb balanced fiber wraps.
Okay.
I probably get about lately probably on average 40 to 50 grams.
You're the fiber
of
queen.
Fiber.
Yeah.
I'm the fiber queen. I will eat carb wraps. I eat Quest bars. I eat veggies with almost every meal. Feels good.
What she's saying is she poops. So
I am regular.
All right. So before
I try to get like 25.
yeah, I think I'm probably
I also
around there
include like apples. I'm not a big green person, but I'm trying to incorporate it in more because it is lower calorie.
So the last kind of bit here is going to be judging performance and then how we kind of modify our macros going down the line. And then we're going to kind of end with all of our philosophies, and maybe we'll get some questions from chat. So performance. So I think, Lou, you might have a lot of input on this. So typically speaking, when someone's in a fat loss phase, they might not see a big dive in performance initially. But when they start seeing the performance dive, do we recommend changing anything about their diet? Or is it more about fatigue and changing up their routine? Is there anything we really need to do diet-wise?
So a lot of this will depend on time frame. If we're just going to continue with the example of the 16-week transformation challenge, generally the first thing I look at is the trends over the last extended period of time. So if we're seeing a fall in like week 6, then I'll look from probably week 3 onwards to see if there was a trend starting to form and where that came about. Generally speaking, unless you're a performance-based athlete, so again, if you have a field to play on, a court to play on, wherever it is, then we'll maybe look at that. But if it's just a bodybuilding prep, I'm not saying bodybuilders aren't athletes. Calm down, internet. All I am saying is that your individual performance is not exactly going to pay your bills. So generally speaking, first thing I'll look at is overall fatigue from the program. I'll look at the training modalities first. Are we doing too much hip hinging? There's too much axial loading. Is there too heavy of loads? Are we working too high of an RPE? RIR is a bit finicky when it comes to managing fatigue. Are we looking at those things to see if there's a signal not to cause it, or if you're cool runnings who just got stronger and stronger every single week on prep? Makes no sense. Then after that point, if there's like, no, the training's fine, the RPE's fine, something's not going right, I'll probably actually look at meal timing first. versus when you're working out. So, Daya, for example, he's a morning workout boy, does it fasted. I'd be like, right, okay, well, we need to put a little bit of fast and easy digesting carbs in the morning just to kind of feel the workout if that's becoming an issue. If it's later on in the evening, then we'll probably look at something else where we'll just like push carbohydrates a little bit closer to the end of the day to feel the workout. Just to kind of give the baseline nutrients to get through it, and that often will kind of fix the issue. If you've been in a steep deficit for a long period of time and like the diet fatigue is hitting, the training fatigue is hitting, that point I would look at a deload from the training just to kind of see if that fixes it. At that point, it would be a sort of diet break where we go to the new maintenance of your current body weight to kind of refuel the body again. But that would be kind of the thought process behind it all.
Would you say meal timing is more about performance, less so about the end goals of physique building? Anyone else agree with that? Meal timing wise?
Yeah, I agree with that. Just have your carbs around your workout. If you're training fasted, I'd say definitely load them post-workout if you can. Or if you can fit it within your eating window right before, if you have a small meal that you can digest quick enough. But generally, if you're focused on performance, you don't want to be having all your fucking meals like 4 hours after your workout. That just doesn't make sense. So if we're looking at fatigue, meal timing is important. Is it the end all be all? No, but it matters. It'll help for sure.
Yeah, like the majority of my carbs are right after my workout. And then if I do have something pre-workout, it's like a Pop-Tart or something, just so it's easily digest. Like, and the only time I really do that is that if I know I'm gonna have to go in and do like a heavy leg day or something, and I'm like, ugh, I'm not feeling it this morning. I'll pop, I'll take like half a Pop-Tart or something on the drive to the gym, and usually that's fine and doesn't like mess with me during my workout. But and then everything else is just immediately after the gym. It's like my heaviest carb meal is breakfast. So
What's your flavor of choice for the Pop-Tart? It's an important question.
Crucial.
I buy strawberry, I buy blueberry. Just kind of depends.
No chocolate chip? Just strawberry and blueberry?
No, I get the Costco ones, man.
Strawberry
I will say
is the best.
confetti cake is one of that confetti cake is crack for some reason. I was like, what the hell? I just stopped
Unfrosted
buying
cinnamon.
Okay, you're a psycho.
Yeah, he's gross.
Yeah.
So
If I get the hot fudge, I have to microwave it at least.
Microwaving is key. Yeah.
Costco just has like it's like strawberry, blueberry, and cherry, and I eat that shit cold. I don't give a fuck.
Are any of you able to fit Pop-Tarts into your diet during the 16 weeks right now?
I could force it.
I had
if
one
I
the other day.
wanted to.
Make it
No
happen.
I
comment.
could do one maybe, but not both.
It is so crazy that one Pop-Tart is like 200 calories.
No, it's
It is.
$3.70 for two of
For
the
two,
frosted
yeah.
strawberry.
Yeah, $3.70 for two.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
200
That's
a piece.
So
Yeah.
just like one is like almost 200 calories.
Yeah.
By the way, if that's not a signal of who
Not
we
quite,
are as a
but yeah.
person, that immediately Chris is like, it's 375, so one is one. Like, straight away, we all know the
It's not
calories of all.
200. I need those extra 30. All right.
I mean, if I'm doing like my breakfast is either protein oatmeal or like a protein shake with cereal. So it's like I'll eat whatever cereal. I don't care. It's carbs.
All right,
I
guys.
think I'm the odd one out
Oh yeah.
on this like meal timing thing because most of my calories I work out around 5 o'clock, and the majority of my calories are at dinner, and that's like the majority of my carbs, proteins, and fats. And before working out, I probably only have like 500 or 600 calories. And the meal that I have before I work out is usually around 2 or 3, and it's like lean protein and vegetables. And I use caffeine to get through my workout. But it's only like a diet soda. It's like one diet soda or like green tea, and that's what I
And
go off of.
you've been doing that for a long time, right? That's kind of like your default mode, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't like to feel really full when I work out. And it's not I'm very I don't think I've ever thrown up from a workout, but I do have like a decent level of intensity, but I just like don't feel good working out on like a really full stomach. And yeah, in general, I'm the kind of person that likes to have fat in my diet rather than carbs. I'm not like super duper crazy low carb or anything, but I like fats in my diet.
I think that's really good information because people might see your physique and be like, how do I attain that? And you're like, listen, it doesn't have to be what, it doesn't have to be what everyone else is saying. Like, I do it my own way and it works pretty damn good. I think that's amazing.
But I would say I definitely, I have a base level of caffeine when I'm not dieting, and it's not like a crazy amount, but I ramp up. I specifically ramp up, and I keep track of how much caffeine I'm taking over time because I want to use that to help me get through the diet. And I also will like do other stimulants as well.
I think
just
that
over time adding it in.
I think that's a good segue for like this last piece, which is kind of what everyone's looking for, is the magic bullet, right? The supplement. What supplement do I need, right? I don't recommend any. Caffeine, maybe some yohimbine or something. But what do you guys recommend supplements wise?
Yohimbi or whatever.
Yeah.
I use that one, and I add it in slowly. I'll start out with and I won't take it in the beginning. I'll wait. I guess I probably won't take it till like week 6, and I'll start with like 1 pill and then 2 and then 3. And I actually find that it is quite effective, but I am on the very low calorie side for myself, and I'm already on the relatively lean side for a woman.
Yeah, caffeine can become a problem, like a real like I had to kind of stop taking my pre-workout for a while just because it was getting to the point where with my pre-workout and caffeine at the end of the for lunchtime, I was getting to like 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day, and got to the point where this is becoming a whole problem. I can't really do this anymore, and so I kind of had to wean myself off caffeine just to find another baseline again. But I'm slowly bringing caffeine back into it. I try not to go crazy, but yeah, caffeine can get you through it, but it can become a problem.
No one else takes any other supplements. It's mostly just diet and that's it.
Nah,
right?
I definitely take
I've got a good
creatine.
amount.
I figured that was already on the table, right?
Creatine,
Yeah,
I think,
I
is
would say
no
so.
brainer.
Creatine, I have not stopped taking creatine for probably like 8 years.
This is maybe where I'm the odd one out. I work out 4:30, 5 o'clock, no caffeine. I haven't eaten anything since 12. I only started taking creatine late last year, and I've been training for like 11 years. I think this is like, I should have mentioned this earlier when we're talking about like dating strategies. What the fuck? Dieting strategies. Your why can be more important than any stimulant, can be more important than anything you're taking. So just remind yourself why you're doing this. Then you don't need caffeine. You don't need any of that. You can just kind of get it done. Hey, take it if you want to take it. Who am I to tell you to do with your life and body? But there's a lot of power in just like your own mental fortitude. You'd be surprised what you can convince yourself you're capable of, and you can be surprised what you convince yourself you're not capable of too.
Toon, you said you have a bunch of supplements you were taking?
Well, one thing I think every person in a fitness journey should realize is that at some point you may get injured. It's almost a matter of when, just from statistics. And it could be just from lifting a grocery bag. It could be outside of the gym. But, fish oil, vitamin K2, or even some curcumin supplements to help you with your joint health and inflammation. It can help, especially as you get a bit older. Like, I'm 31, but I've been getting injured since I was like 22 doing the dumbest shit. And all these things will hold you back from being able to perform at your best. So I think it's worth spending a little bit of extra money on just to help your body kind of recover and just keep those ligaments as primed as they could be. Because it could be the smallest little thing where one day like an incline dumbbell press just doesn't go correctly, or you bend down a certain way. I feel like I'm in peak shape, I would say. But if you want to spend money on supplements, try to use them for areas that you can't cover as well with your diet. The diet comes first, but if you can get a blood test and see what you may be deficient in, so you actually know what you should be spending your money on, I think you'll be getting more bang for your buck rather than, I don't know, let's say you buy a multi, but that multi isn't really covering any bases that you're lacking in, for example. Would I take a multi? Yeah, I do. But blood test, one, so you can see what you're slacking in. And then two, make up for those in supplements, and then get some stuff for joint health. Fish oil, K2, and curcumin.
I will say that probably there are very few people that track these kind of supplements, and I take like a large amount of pills in a day, like a lot.
Damn.
And that includes like fish oils, vitamin E, vitamin D. I also take a collagen supplement and probiotics and stuff like that. If you are not taking these things year around, you probably have to factor that into your calories. I would say, like, I've never calculated it because I take all of this stuff year round, but on the daily, I probably take upwards of 100 calories of like pills that I just like don't calculate into my macros because I would say it's like built in. I do count that collagen supplement because it's like a powder, but yeah, it's something definitely to think about. I do think they are really helpful. I've personally struggled with some joint issues from like I worked in a grocery store basically for a long time in the meat department, and I had some like elbow issues from like repetitive movement. I've never had like very good knees, but all of this stuff it like really does help on top of like preventative measures like good warm-ups and things like that. So definitely recommended as well, but something to keep in mind if you're not taking that kind of stuff year round.
So because we are getting kind of down to the wire, and I do want to get some questions in, the last thing I want to talk about with supplementation is it is supplements, right? And we haven't really talked much about protein powder, but a lot of people ask about protein powder. I for sure have to take it because I'm trying to get over 200 grams of protein a day, so it's very hard for me to get that without some sort of supplement. Does everyone here recommend protein powder? I take a pea protein supplement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but don't rely on it, right? Is that we're all in agreement?
No.
Like,
Yeah,
Do your
this
You
is-
best
can.
to eat
Yeah.
whole foods, but if you need help, like don't feel some type of way about having a protein shake.
get it.
Don't-
I
Don't make it your entire diet.
mean, you can, but I
You could.
wouldn't.
You
Yeah.
can.
You could.
I've
you-
done it.
I think
I've
we're
done it.
all-
It's like
Probably
I don't
shouldn't.
recommend it.
I've taken
Yeah.
70
Yeah.
grams of protein in a shake, Chris. So.
Yeah.
But that's not even the majority of your protein.
I know.
throughout the
Yeah.
day.
No.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you're eating like 200 plus grams of protein a
For sure.
day and like less than half of it is protein shakes, you're probably okay. But you specifically need to eat more vegetables.
Okay, Mom. We all probably could, let's be honest. Every single one of us.
Right.
I'm making more, what do you call it, fermented stuff, so he's going to be eating more.
Oh
So
yeah,
don't worry.
yeah. My guts are gonna be in good shape. Nancy's got me covered. So the last little bit here, I want to hear everyone. We're gonna go back in our standard order. I want to hear within 30 seconds to a minute of give us your best advice for someone who's trying to lose fat and keep it off and make it a lifestyle. Let's start with Terrible Hime.
Habits. Build productive habits that help you reach your fitness and physique goals. These habits will get you through times when you're not going to be tracking. And I would say these habits are things like drinking a lot of water, prioritize protein in all of your meals, choosing things that are more macro friendly when you're eating out sometimes. So habits that are sustainable and long term and that, will serve you well throughout your entire life.
Nancy?
Choose the diet that works best for you, not like one size fits all for everybody. So you're going to stick to a diet when it doesn't make you miserable. If you want to eat like pizza once in a while, and you can make that work for you, but a lot of it is portion control. So yeah, you'll have to figure it out over time, like what works best for you. But yeah, dieting doesn't have to suck, basically.
Jason.
Just track. I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Tracking is a hack. When you start tracking and doing it consistently, you will see you have all the information right at your fingertips. If you were tracking, you know exactly how much you're eating, and you can adjust it accordingly to always know what you're eating. So if you need to adjust to lose weight, you can lower those numbers, and you know exactly how much you need to eat to lower the numbers, and vice versa. If you need to gain, you can increase the numbers, but you can't do that unless you're tracking.
Very good. Lou.
Yeah, much the same. Track. Be honest with yourself. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking that's a tablespoon, because it's not. Be okay with having uncomfortable conversations about the reality of the position that you're in. Information is power, so get as much as you can, and install new beneficial behaviors to support your new lifestyle that you're trying to do. At the end of the day, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So you're looking at correcting your life, not just your next 16 weeks beyond this.
Tune.
I'd like to reference Atomic Habits, James Clear. He has a mantra in there where he states that if you envision something for yourself, assume the identity of the person you would be at that point. A lot of that covers what everyone else here has mentioned. The habits, the beliefs you have as a person with regards to fitness, nutrition, and your day-to-day may not be true, and they may not be beneficial for you down the road. If you start acting as a person who is 50 pounds down or is 25 pounds heavier with lean muscle, you will be making different choices. Being more present, being more reflective of everything that you do, and being more aware of your actions will allow you to make better choices day after day after day. But that takes consistent effort to make those proper choices. Education and increasing your knowledge of your body, your mindset, and nutrition and fitness overall.
Tabs.
So I would first say planning is a huge key for me. Basically, going ahead and like meal prepping a lot of meat or protein so that you can kind of make different things with it, as the week goes on, because maybe you get tired of having, like chicken and rice every day. So you can mix it up with something else if you just have the meat separate from other things. And then, of course, you can weigh it and make sure that you're actually getting what you think you're getting rather than just a portion of what you made. But I mean, granted, that works too. Um, and then whenever I would say that goes along with planning. A lot of us, I think, are ADHD. And so it's like I have to take the person that's me that like knows what I need and knows what I'm doing and what my purpose is to the grocery store and then make sure that I don't have a lot of extra things in the house that, aren't going to help my goals because later on I'm going to forget why I'm doing things and what I need to be doing that day and then just, nonchalantly just go into the fridge and find something that I probably shouldn't be eating. So if I had already planned for that and don't have those things in my house, then that really helps me out to not like forget like, oh, hey, I'm trying to do this goal right now. And so I was like, okay, this is how things are, and I already have it made, so I can just reach in the fridge and get what I'm actually supposed to be having that day.
I like it. And I think a few things that I've gleaned off of this was, hunger isn't the enemy, right? Embrace it sometimes. And the goal is the big picture, right? Remember the goal, right? And Toon had some pretty good stuff to say about that. I think really good, deep philosophical stuff that we can all kind of pull in internally, and we can all kind of embrace that we are that end person if we want to be, right? And the last bit is sometimes your emotions and stuff, you can't trust them all the time. Yes, we're emotional beings, but sometimes you got to like think logically, and you will be more elated at the end of this if you stick it out and get through it. And you're going to see what you're capable of. And I really like what we all were able to talk about here. And I think it goes surface level stuff and deeper meaning stuff. And I think it's amazing. Thank you, guys. We do want to go into some questions. So we have a couple that we have pre-made. I'm just going to kind of go through them real quick. So we talked about hunger. One thing we didn't really get into is how often should you weigh yourself and track progress? What do you guys think? How often should you weigh yourself? I personally do it almost daily.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Me too.
And then what do you do? And
I do it daily.
what do you do with that information? And how often are you making adjustments to your progress or to your strategy based on that weight? What are you looking at?
I use the daily weigh-ins to then like look at a bigger picture overall instead of looking at the individual fluctuations from like yesterday to today. I'll take that information on like a grander scale, a week or a month, just to make sure that my goal is getting fulfilled. So if I'm in a fat loss phase, I'm looking for a trending downward. And personally, I kind of evaluate my strategy week to week, but usually the changes I make aren't big changes. They're typically like pretty small in terms of like my weekly macro strategy.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, if
I
you're
do take.
contracting every day, I would just average out that weekly rate. And I think we're all saying the similar thing here. Then you can make adjustments based off of that because it's like stocks. If you're looking at it every 5 minutes, like what are you doing, right? Use a grander scale, use that to make a better adjustment if needed, and then go from there because weight's going to fluctuate based off of your cortisol, how much you slept, how little you slept, your water intake. There's too many factors that you won't be tracking. So wake up in the morning, track that, average it out at the end of the week, go from there.
I
And
also try to average which, from a particular day of the week to the rest of the week. So I try to average it out, and then I always do it first thing in the morning after I like pee or poop, and then I also do it not dressed because obviously you don't want extra weight of clothing. But mine's like one of those smart scales, so it kind of gives a little bit better information. And granted, it may not be very accurate, but it is accurate, I think, in the progress that you make.
should I care about body fat percentage? What do you guys think?
No.
Yes.
Depends on your goals.
I think it's a great measurable statistic to use. Is it accurate? Probably not. But just like your weight, if that same scale at the same time of the day is saying, hey, last week you were at 20% body fat, this week you're at 19.8, I would say, okay, that's moving forward. Even if your weight's the same, I feel like that's another tool to use, just like tracking macros, just like weighing in or using a measuring tape around your waist or thighs to see if you're progressing. But it's just a tool. And you may not actually be that body fat percentage, but a DEXA scan isn't 100% accurate either. It's just a tool for you to see if you're progressing the way you want.
What would be more beneficial, the number, or would it be just the visual stuff if you're taking weekly photos?
Personally, I go with the visual, but I don't evaluate it day to day. I definitely will give it like a week or 2 weeks or even a month for my body to actually visualize some changes. Otherwise, there's no point. You're not going to see a difference like Tuesday and Wednesday.
No.
What is the biggest mistake people make halfway through their challenges, through their dieting phase, through a 16-week challenge? What would be their biggest mistake, would you say? What have you seen?
Not tracking hidden macros.
I'd say making an adjustment too early, just because things may steady for a little bit. That doesn't mean that you're still not, losing fat. Give it a bit more time. Make sure that you actually have plateaued here, depending on how much time you have. I mean, if you're trying to be aggressive, sure, okay, but sometimes your body just might be in a state of, I don't know, regulating. Next thing you know, you're dropping another 5 pounds. Just got to give it some time. Sometimes.
I think the biggest things that I've seen, not just for myself but for others, is they kind of screw up one day and then they're like, well, I'm done, that's it, and give up, throw in the towel, and don't get back on the wagon. And so it's like, no, it's a new day. You need to start over every day and hold yourself accountable as well as you can. And even if you may like mess up one thing, like it's never going to be perfect. You just have to show up for yourself day in and day out, regardless of how you did the day before.
Do you guys think a community like ours has been more beneficial than not for some of these people who may be on that same kind of path we're talking about with the falling off and making mistakes? What do you think about communities like ours?
100%.
I think, yeah, like when I was younger, 14, like 16, 17 years ago, forums and message boards were my saving grace. And now in this modern time, it's Discord, places like this.
Yeah, to Tabs' point, like when you make a mistake I mean, the biggest mistake people make when they're doing a transformation challenge or going through a diet phase is they just stop. That's the biggest mistake. As Chael Sonnen once said, when it comes to a fight, the easiest out is to quit. And I think that's one thing that happens when you have a community like this, where having a shit day, or I ate Papa John's on Sunday, and then Daya and Acro and Cole and 7 other people yell at me for it. There's like, right, okay, I fucked up. That's fine. But there's people that care enough about you to support you, and I think that's ultimately what matters here. Is that quite often, yes, we are a byproduct of our own habits, as kind of Tuna said. Like, be the person you want to be, and eventually you'll become that person. But your environment is also going to dictate that. If you live in isolation and you don't really do much, you don't really interact with people, it's a lot harder to kind of be able to visualize and enjoy that progress across the board. And you're also not going to have the support system required to be able to do that. As Daya said, like bringing a food skill to a restaurant, and then your friend's like, what the fuck are you doing that for, weirdo? You need to have people around you that are going to support your endeavors regardless of what they are. Sure, there's going to be beneficial and detrimental habits people wouldn't support, but ultimately the community is going to be there to kind of support you when you need it, give you the information when you need it, and hold you accountable when you need it.
Any final thoughts? Any final questions we have? Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I only know as much as I do from you guys. Like, honestly, it started out, with watching some of you guys, and then like asking questions in chat and learning as much as I have, and not necessarily paying attention to a whole bunch of like, quick fixes and hacks and things like that you might see on social media, but actually getting to know people and having relationships in order to actually like, learn what other people are really doing rather than, what they're telling people online.
Great. Any final thoughts, comments? Anything from the chat?
We're all gonna make it.
We're all gonna make it, bruh. We're all gonna make it. We're all gonna make it.
It's all gonna be okay.
You guys get that reference? Good job. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all you guys. Daya, Nancy, Lou, Tabs, Chris, Toon. Thank you guys so much for doing this. We are going to be planning more of these. I'm assuming the next one will probably be more about programming. Lou, I'm springing this on him now. So it's going to be more about programming, how we kind of each have our own different philosophies around programming and moving forward on a bodybuilding or performance-based split, whatever it might be. That's going to be the next thing. We do have a couple additional things that are going to be happening. In the APE Discord, we're going to be doing some posing stuff. So this Saturday, feel free to come in to the posing voice channel. We're going to be having a few of us posing, hanging out. We're going to do posing powwows periodically, and it'll be a good time. So thank you guys. Make sure you guys follow each and every one of these amazing, unique individuals. They're going to post their links to their social media in the chat, in the Discord chat, and I will have a link on the YouTube page. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just go into the description. You can see about all these guys. So thanks again for being here. Stay tuned. Join the Discord. Make sure you verify when you join. Thanks again, guys. It's a good discussion. I look forward to having more of these. Thanks. Hi, guys. Thanks, guys, for tuning in on our discussion. Again, we are going to be having more discussions like this in our Discord, and we'll be posting them on YouTube later. If you watch this one, thank you for sticking around till the end. We do have a transformation challenge happening right now. That transformation challenge ends in mid-May, and we're going to do a showcase for it, and we're going to be announcing winners and showcasing everyone's amazing progress and where they've what they've hit as far as physique goals. And then in the summer, we're going to be doing a bodybuilding showcase where you can showcase your best physique in an artistic and cinematic way. We encourage editing, and we want you to just do that and have fun with it. And it's a new, different way to participate in bodybuilding and the art of bodybuilding. And we are going to be doing some awards and some fundraising events as well for people with rare conditions and physical limitations. So hope you guys stick around and hang out with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks.